Alrighty, we're a few minutes past, so I think we can kick things off. So hello and welcome. Thank you for joining the Education and Workforce Development, also known as EWD, and the 4S informational webinar for BioMade's Project Call 5.0. My name is Hunter Brown, and I'm representing the EWD team. I'm also joined in this call. We have Mark Reynolds, who will be representing 4S, and also Laura Vitko, BioMade's Director of Strategic Partnerships. Move to the next slide and go over the agenda. So today we'll cover BioMade's mission space and then specifics about the EWD and 4S project calls, including the focus areas, guidelines, eligibility requirements, and topics related to contracting, finance, intellectual property, and team composition. We'll close with time for Q&A, but please, as we go, submit questions via the chat or anytime thereafter. You can submit questions to the proposals@biomade.org email address. I just want to note that this session is being recorded and will be shared publicly for people to reference. So first, we'll cover a little bit about BioMade. BioMade is one of 17 Manufacturing Innovation Institutes, or MIIs. We are sponsored by the U.S. Department of Defense with a vision to build a sustainable domestic end-to-end bioindustrial manufacturing ecosystem. Our mission is to enable domestic bioindustrial manufacturing, develop technologies to enhance U.S. bioindustrial competitiveness, and de-risk investment in relevant infrastructure to expand the biomanufacturing workforce with the mission to realize the economic promise of industrial biotechnology. BioMade is building a robust ecosystem. To date, we have about 300 members who span industry, academia, and nonprofit organizations. And within BioMade, we have three key pillars: technology and innovation, or TEC, education and workforce development, or EWD, and the sustainability, safety, security, sustainability, and social responsibility, also known as 4S. And so for Project Call 5.0, there's a separate RFP for each of these three pillars. On the next slide, we'll start talking about the EWD RFP. So for education workforce development solicitation, we're really looking for robust teams that combine diverse expertise from industry, academia, and the local community you're trying to serve, to expand pathways in careers in bioindustrial manufacturing, to equip the workforce with the skills that they need to be successful in their own careers, but also to advance the overall bioeconomy at large. Note that the lead proposer and partner organizations need to be BioMade members in good standing at the time of white paper submission, so no later than January 22nd. Looking at the funding amounts, EWD projects tend to be in that $2 million range. It can be less, can be more, with appropriate justification. These projects require a one-to-one cost share. So what that means is for every dollar of funding received through the project, teams will need to contribute a similar dollar value to the project. And this can come in many forms, be it people's time, equipment usage, financial contributions, material and supplies that are going to the projects. And last there, we have projects are typically around that 18 to 24 month period, but they can be no longer than 24 months for this project call. I'll hand it off to Mark to talk about the 4S RFP.
All right, thanks so much, Hunter. I'm Mark Reynolds, the 4S Program Manager. I'm happy to discuss more about the 4S Institute Project Call for Project Call 5. Like the other Institute project calls and this project call release, it's intended to emphasize the development of program areas and generate resources to the ecosystem, to the BioMade members in the entire ecosystem. The 4S RFP in particular in this project call is titled Aggregating and Disseminating 4S Practices. The 4S project call is intended to build upon the committee's work within the 4S program. So all of our programs at BioMades have respective committees, and the 4S committee in particular defined each of these S's, while subcommittees that are organized around each S, that is safety, sustainability, security, and social responsibility, those subcommittees deliberated further those S pillars or principles into subcomponents. And that's going to be really important as it relates to this project call and the white paper submission. So projects should collate evidence-based best practices, package it, and disseminate it to the Biomed ecosystem. That way we can, all our members can easily incorporate strategies into their everyday operations that fit the 4S framework. So the what is an institute call seeking deliverables aimed to increase the knowledge base, tools, and experts available to the Biomed ecosystem. The who is it's available to Biomed members in good standing. We'll learn more about what constitute good standing later. For anticipated funding for this project call for 4S per project, it's about $500,000 across a 6 to 12-month time frame. Proposers are welcome to justify if a larger award or longer period is needed. And like all Biomed projects pitch at the white paper and for proposal stage, we must have the minimum cost share requirement of 1-to-1, and higher is encouraged. So as we start bringing up items like cost share or other important details of the Biomed membership and proposals, I invite you to please put your questions in the chat and we will have time to address them. So for that, that wraps up the RFP for 4S, and then I'll pass it over to Hunter to describe more about the focus areas.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so now we'll talk about the focus areas of this project call. Suggestions for focus areas were identified by Biomed's committee and subcommittee members. Focus areas are prioritized through a rank choice voting system by these committee members. So really, this is a shameless plug to really get involved as a Biomed member in these committees and subcommittees and have your voice heard to help shape future project calls. The next slide. So for the EWD project call specifically, we're looking at two focus areas here. And projects can align to one or both. There's no extra credit for aligning to both in the rubric. You're more than welcome to. But the first one we have there on the left is work-based learning projects. So these will incorporate experiential learning opportunities that align with career pathways in the bioindustrial sector. So this can come in many different shapes and forms, a few outlined there, but it's really at the discretion of the proposal teams to how they're defining this experiential learning for participants. And on the right, we have the second focus area, which are projects that will be aligned to the broadening of audiences and increasing awareness, which is meant to sort of enhance understanding and engagement with career opportunities in bioindustrial manufacturing. And this can be across different educational levels and communities, really just to spread engagement and awareness of this growing sector of the economy. And again, some examples of things listed below, but really at the discretion of the proposal teams, how they're defining this. So pretty broad focal areas. Your project can align to one or both, and be it at your discretion. On the next slide. So what is unique about Project Call 5 for EWD is, in addition to selecting a focus area, submission teams will also need to select one of 3 project types. The 3 project types shown below are design, build, or test. The categorization of proposals into these one of 3 distinct project types serves 2 purposes. One, it encourages a diverse range of proposals, and each of these different types contribute uniquely to the ecosystem. And secondly, this classification allows for the potential impact to be evaluated within the project types to appreciate kind of the unique significance that these types of proposals can bring to various workforce development challenges. So on the far left there, we have the design project type. So you can think of these essentially as planning grants that are really outlining sort of specific community needs, but also ensuring that sort of the data and reporting that comes along with that is useful to the broader Biomed community at large for future projects or future endeavors. In the middle there, we have the build project type, and this is really looking for innovative prototypes in EWD. So this is really, these project types can be high risk, but they have the potential, if successful, to really kind of move the needle and have significant impact for the community at large. And finally, last but not least, we have the test project type, and this is all about scalability, enlarging that impact, and really looking at taking proven prototypes that have the data to show this works, and with some additional funding, how can you really scale this model for further impact? So those are kind of the 3 buckets we have outlined there. On the next slide, I think I mentioned before this project call again, we're just really emphasizing the team and robustness of teams. So we're promoting the assembly of robust teams with diverse insights and perspectives so that project outcomes can be inclusive, but also catalyze broader ecosystem impacts. So proposal teams are very strongly encouraged to include at least one industry partner. Additionally, teams should really consider supplementing the expertise that they have on their project teams with appropriate perspective from bioindustry, academic pedagogical approaches, as well as people from the community who they intend to serve. And it's really just important to have these perspectives, these expertise, to really shape robust teams for improved outcomes. So in I guess, a few hours after this call, I encourage you to think about joining a teaming webinar that'll be happening later this afternoon to really, again, think about what expertise do you have in your team and how could you build it out to encompass more of these areas. With that, I'll hand it back over to Mark.
All right, thanks, Hunter. Happy to change the focus into the forest program area. We can talk more about what's entailed in that program on this slide. But BioMade's forest program is committed to advancing the well-being of people, communities, and environments in all our work advancing bioindustrial manufacturing. We are aiming to maximize positive impact and minimize risk related to each of these 4 S's. In addition to deciding on a focus area, more for 4 S's specific focus areas coming on the next couple slides, proposals under this project call should address at least one or multiple of the S's, so safety, security, sustainability, or social responsibility. The Forest Committee developed definitions for each of these principles. The publication should be a hyperlink in the RFP, but feel free to drop a line in the chat if you seek any questions on how to access that. And these definitions are provided for guidance as you deliberate your project during the proposal stages. So I'm going to briefly just kind of summarize paraphrased definitions of these as outlined by the Forest Committee. Safety is defined as the following: practices, controls, and measures taken to protect people and the environment from harm from biomanufacturing development process or the physical products or byproducts. Security covers measures taken across the biotechnology and biomanufacturing sectors to manage potential threats and loss due to theft, misuse, diversion, unauthorized possession of property, or intentional release of risk. Sustainability includes measures taken to maintain or improve the long-term viability of the environment and economy due to advancing the biomanufacturing process. And lastly, social responsibility is a principle that acknowledges the impacts of biomanufacturing on stakeholders with respect to associated benefits, risks, and consequences throughout its value chain. As I mentioned, the Forest Committee developed the definitions, and that was some early pioneering work. But the subcommittees and recent work, which are based around each of these S's, again, safety, security, sustainability, and social responsibility, these subcommittees explicitly defined subcomponents. That way we can kind of get to the gist of what we're seeking in future initiatives from 4S and filling gaps in the ecosystem. So here's a list of the subcomponents. You'll be required to address one of these as early as the white paper stage, or like we mentioned previously, at least one or multiple. But the subcomponents for safety are people safety, environmental safety, and process safety. Security, the subcomponents are data security, intellectual property or IP security, and cybersecurity. For sustainability, the subcomponents are measuring sustainability, as well as articulating sustainability and its value proposition. And finally, the last 3 subcomponents you could align with for this project call for your proposed project. This case falls to social responsibility. Those 3 subcomponents are community and public engagement and responsiveness through inclusivity, capturing positive social impact, and also fostering a culture of social responsibility. And in addition to identifying which S you're kind of aligning with or the subcomponent, proposers, as early as the white paper proposal stage, you'd be asked to list a focus area that your project falls into. And again, this could be at least one or multiple. So focus areas that are listed here are oriented around different types of deliverables, again, using these evidence-based strategies. They include case study, integrating 4S work with EWD work, and resource aggregation. I can detail a little bit more about each of those focus areas. For example, case studies will detail efforts taken around the 4S pillars, what resources were used, what worked and what didn't work. We're also interested in, things that didn't work so we can make sure our members know about best practices. So for example, a proposal could have a case study on how to effectively share IP in your operations. For the integrating EWD and 4S work, this is highly relevant because you're part of this webinar where we're discussing both programs. This is a cross-cutting theme that can train students how to use 4S principles. Can also train workers and general public using EWD best practices. So an example of a proposal that falls in this focus area could aggregate resources for a life cycle assessment. Could be very broad like that. Resource aggregation can also be pretty broad, but an example of a project that falls in that focus area could be aggregating resources on how your company engages with the public and the methods for doing so. And this ties into what was described earlier. A big general theme for the 4S project call is to aggregate and disseminate these best practices. So collecting and collating helpful or hidden resources that are beneficial to a select few, but can be beneficial to everybody is what we're seeking, packaging that in an accessible form and disseminating it to the ecosystem so that maybe a more experienced larger company in public engagement, for example, can communicate to newer startups. And lastly, for the focus area slide, there are ways that you can pitch hybrid projects and they can productively overlap. So for example, you can propose resource aggregation and module delivery to a wide range of audiences, and that checks kind of the EWD and resource aggregation focus area. And I want to end before I shift into the proposer guidelines section, highlighting successful projects where cross-program collaboration was incorporated. About 2 out of 3 of these revolve around collaboration between the 4S program and the Tech and Innovation program, but also some here involve EWD and another cross-program collaboration. So hoping you can keep an open mind about how these successful formulas can be applied to this project call. Highlighting some of the teams and expertise of these projects, we have social dynamics surrounding bioindustrial manufacturing and products. That project was conducted by a professor of public relations in a biogarment tech company. So led by the University of Georgia and tech partner 10 Repeat. We also had ALACI, which stands for Applied Life Science Academy Knowledge Advancing Industry from Lead University of Hawaii and tech partner. So you're seeing the synergy between companies and academic institutions. And recently announced in Project Call 4, we have security and safety implications of cell-free systems for biomanufacturing. And this is led by a cell biologist at University of Minnesota and a policy expert at Georgia Institute of Technology, where they're completing respectively the technology innovation tasks as well as the 4S tasks at each of their institutions. Now we're going to spend the rest of the presentation talking logistics and walking through the components of the RFP in more detail. As a reminder, you can find a copy of the full RFP on the biomade.org website. On the programs page, there's a link to the RFP documents. There's several, as Hunter alluded to earlier, and I'll touch upon that in a second. But on the on the website, you can find some of these templates, the white paper submission form, and FAQs. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about key dates for this project call. So here's a nice summary. The project call was released for all programs across 4 different RFPs. That is tech, and NSF. There's a unique component integrating the tech and innovation program area of BioMADE with NSF. So please be on the lookout for that webinar as it becomes available on the website. That event was held yesterday. We have the EWD as we're talking about today, as well as the 4S. So again, there's 4 different RFPs. Be sure you're choosing the right one or ask questions. Today, we're having this informational webinar. As Hunter alluded to, we have a teaming webinar about 2.5 hours from now. So please register if you haven't done so already. The idea is to make a productive space for teams to think towards collaboration to increase the strength and impact of their projects. After the RFP is released, starting December 13th, those white papers are open. A month later-ish, in January 22nd, those white papers are due by 5 p.m. Pacific time. In early March, BioMADE will begin to notify teams if they advance from the white paper stage to the full proposal stage or are declined. And here we're just breaking down the timeline into periods. It might be helpful to proposers. White paper preparation and submission, that stage is due January 22nd, and you are to submit on the member portal. We'll have Laura join in a moment to discuss about how to access that or the eligibility and other aspects of membership. Next stage, if selected, is the window of full proposal preparation and submission. It's due on April 18th, 2025. And again, both of the white paper and full proposal deadlines are 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And finally, we anticipate notification and contracting for awarded projects to begin early summer with anticipated start dates of September. And then understanding the proposal process, this is a 2-step submission process. The white paper is essentially a pre-proposal, maximum of 5-page length, and invitations to submit full proposals will come if project teams are selected to advance. However, at the white paper stage, budget, cost share, and other aspects like spend plan should be considered at project inception. Again, submissions on the member portal, detailed instructions are available online, the RFP. And we wish to communicate, that early white paper submissions doesn't give you any extra credit, as Hunter mentioned earlier, but it can strengthen your proposal. It gives you feedback. So you're on this call early. We encourage you, if you can, to submit early, and we can try to strengthen your proposal feedback. And for the technical review, for both stages, white papers and full proposals are reviewed by BioMADE staff and subject matter experts within the U.S. government. Other members will not see your proposal. Teams that are invited to submit the full proposals will be provided materials in advance, as well as can afford or can schedule a time up to an hour to speak with the program manager for expectations of the project. And rubrics will be available. We're going to go over that more in coming slides. Please have any questions or check in the RFP for more detailed expectations and weight categories. And I think the last thing I didn't say here is that full proposals must have a maximum of 16 pages in length, but other supplementary documents like letters of commitment do not fall into that length maximum. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Hunter to start talking about white paper rubrics and proposal rubrics.
Thanks, Mark. So the Tech, EWD, and 4S, they each have similar but distinct scoring rubrics that are aligned to the type of project submitted under each program area. So with that, on the next slide, I'll start digging into the EWD rubrics. So here are some general requirements. The first one, BioMADE projects are bioindustrial manufacturing, not biopharmaceutical manufacturing. And especially in the EWD space, there's a lot of skill overlap between these different areas of biomanufacturing. But BioMADE's mission space really is non-medical. So ensuring that your biomanufacturing skills and training are aligned and driven towards bioindustrial in nature and focus. Additionally, Having clear metrics and learning outcomes for education training programs are essential. In terms of program sustainability, this is sort of towards the idea of we're looking for ecosystem change. And so we want these projects that become funded to build off each other and be additive and not just sort of one and done, one-off funded projects. We sort of want these to outlive the period of performance that you're funded, and thinking about sustainability plans and how do you kind of stack different funding projects so that it creates overall ecosystem change is the goal here. So in this call, we'll be adding a section for people to include a sustainability plan to think about how the work funded through this BioMade project funding can go on and build to future successes. As mentioned earlier, robust team building, really diverse perspective and backgrounds are shown to have improved outcomes, so that is essential. And last but not least, we're really focused on ecosystem impact and what deliverables and outcomes of your project are giving back to the BioMade community and members, as well as the bioindustrial ecosystem at large. And on the next slide, we'll dig into the rubric itself. So here's the EWD rubric. It's the same for white paper and full proposal stages. I'd like to, I guess, draw your attention to a few categories. You see there we have what's called placement pathways category. So this is a new category, and it's really highlighting the importance of job placement or having a clearly defined student pathway or trainee pathway to industry positions. And this is a critical metric for proposal teams. This concept was, again, brought up by the subcommittees and reviewed by various committees and subcommittees. And the feedback was this was meant to add clear value to the ecosystem, but also to clarify expectation for end deliverables of project teams. So really ensuring that you're kind of clarifying what your pathway are for trainees into industry. Another category I want to draw your attention to that I just touched on is this new sustainability category. Again, this was introduced with the purpose that EWD projects funded by BioMade not only achieve their near-term objectives within a period of performance, but also lay the groundwork for long-term impact, as well as becoming additive towards ecosystem level change. And so this category really emphasizes the importance of articulating a clear plan and next steps following the completion of a funded project. So it's really just encouraging teams to think strategically about the future. And this rubric category is really just to emphasize that. And with that, I will hand it back to Mark.
Thanks, Hunter, for describing what will constitute successful EWD projects. Happy to clarify that for the 4S project call. Successful projects will demonstrate commitment and strategy in their plan, addressing, as I mentioned previously, at least one or multiple S's and their associated subcomponent or subcomponents. We talked about the focus areas for the 4S RFP, but the type of deliverables that can stem from these focus areas are worthwhile to discuss. So for example, there are ways you can engage across multiple audiences to increase awareness of one of these S's. And that can tie into EWD 4S integration focus area, as well as touching on resource aggregation focus area, if including things like module delivery, where you're packaging things. Or another way you can think about this is a case study with lessons learned and recommendations. This is kind of a hybrid project approach with two focus areas. And that could allow for scalable public engagement with your company where facility or scale-up efforts are underway or planned. And that kind of covers the resource aggregation and the case study focus area. So just to kind of make it very clear, as early as white paper stage, we're seeking which S component you're touching on, that is safety, sustainability, security, social responsibility, which subcomponents, singular or multiple within the S pillars, as well as a focus area discussed here, covering your project deliverables and milestones. And just a reminder, that's a required component to list subcomponents, and that's listed here, the 11 or so you have a chance to pitch for your project. Now for the 4S rubrics, this is a little different than how EWD was just presented by Hunter. We actually have two slightly different rubrics. and I'll discuss more why for the 4S program in particular. At the white paper, we're really emphasizing more weight on categories like fit to Biomade's mission, the project call focus areas, making sure you hit a subcomponent, things I just touched upon, as well as the outcomes and approach. This is kind of just a summarized, very simplistic view of the rubric, but I encourage you to review in the RFP more details where it lists, like subsections of fit, for example. And that way you can really make sure you get all the points. For example, there is a section that your project will be viewed a little more favorably if it does have an EWD component, or if it does have a diversity, equity, inclusion, or accessibility component. Now for the full proposal, I'm going to point out just some slight differences in the categories if invited to the stage. We've added greater emphasis on the schedule, the budget, and the teamwork and personnel for that project. So by that point, we've already seen the fits and how it aligns to Biomade's Institute project calls and mission. And we're really trying to see if that synergy is aligned with the teamwork and that you're on track with your proposal plan to deliver deliverables to the ecosystem in a reasonable time. Now, again, if there's any questions on the rubrics or subtleties with what we just discussed, please put them in the chat. We'll discuss it at the end. But for now, we're going to switch gears and pass it over to Laura at Biomade, so you can talk more about membership. If you're not a member, or you're a current member that's seeking to reapply to Biomade for membership, now is a great chance to listen.
Thank you, Mark. So I know we have some members on the call today. I want to thank you for your support of Biomade. And to those that are not yet members, I want to articulate these project call funding opportunities are just one of many benefits of being part of Biomade. So I really encourage you to consider joining, not only to partake in this activity, but also to partake in our subcommittees, our workshops, our professional working groups, and networking activities throughout the year. So specific to the Project Call 5 opportunity, all organizations that are seeking Biomade funding, whether they're a lead organization or a partner on the project, are required to be a member in good standing with a signed membership agreement at the time of the white paper submission. So that white paper submission deadline is January 22nd. To allow our team time to process and formalize your agreement, you need to send a new membership agreement back to Biomade by January 17th. The membership agreement itself is an agreement document, and then there are 2 community documents, terms and conditions, and an IP management plan. So you want to make sure to reach out to the membership team as soon as possible if you are not yet a member, to start reviewing those documents internally through your processes to join in time. So all project participants as well must maintain membership throughout the life of the project. So if your project advances to full proposal and to funding, you must be a member through the full project closeout if it's advancing to funding. If there is the desire to request an exception for membership, we do have a form here linked, and then questions can be sent to proposals@biomade.org. Next slide, please. Just a few more eligibility requirements. So membership is a combination of cash dues and in-kind dues. The cash dues for membership for members that are renewing this winter, they will need to pay the dues by their invoice, or a new member will need to pay the cash dues of their invoice by February 6th or the date of their invoice, whichever comes first. If you do not pay your membership dues, you technically become out of good standing, and you would then not be eligible to participate in this project funding opportunity. There are some tiers of membership that include access to all 3 of Biomade's program areas. The training tier members are not eligible to lead the technology and innovation project. So I know this project call isn't focused on technology and innovation, but I did want to highlight that. And then one of our membership tiers, the finance tier, is not eligible to participate on the project call opportunities. If you are not a current member, again, please reach out as soon as possible to membership@biomade.org. We can talk with you about the membership benefits, the right tier for your organization, and make sure that you have those agreement materials to review through your internal processes. Again, new members should be returning a signed agreement to Biomade by January 17th. Next slide. So the proposals that you will submit at the white paper stage will be using the provided templates, and they must adhere to the administrative guidelines. So make sure to review those guidelines very carefully. Proposals are submitted through our Biomade member portal, and because they are submitted through the member portal, an individual must be affiliated with a current Biomade member organization to have a portal account set up for them. So if you are a current member and you don't have a portal account, please reach out to memberportal@biomade.org by January 15th at the latest to give yourself time to get your account set up and submit by January 22nd with that white paper. And then if you are a new member, again, as part of the membership agreement process, you'll want to make sure that you plan for getting your portal account set up and your membership agreement returned to Biomade by January 17th. Next slide, please. So I did mention membership comes with many benefits. Project funding opportunities are just one of those benefits. We also connect our members to directed project opportunities and to relationships with other member organizations, both in the research and development space, workforce development, and with U.S. government staff. So there's a lot of opportunities to build relationships through committees, subcommittees, and working groups, at application-focused workshops, through events and networking activities throughout the year. You also receive access to resources like our Biomade roadmaps, exclusive communications, and the member portal. Next slide, please. So Biomade has multiple tiers of membership, and I want to just take a little time to talk about the distinctions. So as you review Biomade's website and see information about the membership program, we categorize membership based on the organization type, its size, and what level of access it provides to the highest value benefits. So we have a membership tier for startup companies, and how we would define a startup would be a pre-revenue company with 20 or fewer full-time employees. For companies that are larger than that or have advanced beyond the startup stage, we have the affiliate tier for small businesses. And for companies that are larger than a small business, we have 3 tiers, the silver, gold, and platinum tiers for mid-sized to large companies. Next slide. For our academic and nonprofit and other consortium partners, we have the training tier, which is a very accessible membership for 2-year colleges, community colleges, and small education nonprofits. This tier of membership provides access to Biomade's education and workforce development program. For universities, especially the R1 and R2 classified universities, we have 2 options, the participating tier and the governing tier. We have a tier for national labs and FFRDCs. We have another tier for agriculture and business associations. So this could also include economic development organizations. And then a new pilot program that we've rolled out that I want to highlight provides a fully in-kind dues option for 2-year colleges or R2 research universities that are minority serving institutions. So again, if you have any questions about the right tier or any of these programs I've highlighted today, please reach out to membership@biomade.org. Next slide. And just to give you the high-level overview of how to join as a Biomade member. So first you want to apply. So we have a web form at our website that's listed there. The Biomade membership team will follow up with you to send you the application agreement materials that you will want to review. So the agreement form, terms and condition, and IP management plan. And then you will need to return a signed agreement to Biomade, which our team will then fully execute and return to you. Next slide. So I hope you will consider joining if you are not already a member, and to those members who have joined us today, really encourage you to participate in this opportunity, and thank you for your continued support.
Thanks, Laura. Now I'll briefly speak about the contracting process. So sequentially, this is after white paper submission, after full proposal submission, you're provisionally approved for funding. The contracting period takes place after that. And so contracting really is sort of we're outlining what are the clear conditions for an award. So you'll need to comply with those conditions with oversight and reporting requirements of Biomaid. Additionally, should you be selected for funding, you will really get to know your assigned program manager pretty well. There will be monthly meetings and various monthly and quarterly reports. Also, during the last 3 months of the project, you will work with your program manager to establish a communication plan. The purpose of this really is to make sure that the deliverables and milestones established in your project can get out and benefit the Biomaid community at large. You will also work with your program manager for any adjustments that happen during the period of performance of your project via the scope or budget, key personnel, looking at foreign vendors or timing of your project and its milestones and deliverables. All of those adjustments will be done via your program manager assigned to your project. I'll take a minute again to highlight some aspects of finance for projects. So we've mentioned a few times this concept of project cost share. The general framework is cost share should be allowable, allocable, and reasonable. There needs to be a match of at least 1-to-1, and teams cannot use federal dollars as matching funds. And we know that sometimes a lot of the responses is, can this be considered cost share or not? A lot of times the response is, it depends. So please reach out to proposals@biomaid.org for if you need additional clarification or questions that come up with this concept of cost share. But most of the time, you can talk through this with a program manager and help you get this right. Down below, we have IDC rate negotiations. So if your organization doesn't have one, please reach out to the finrequest@biomaid.org to get started. These will need to be wrapped up by February 21st. And it'll be good for 2 years after that. And if you do not have a negotiated indirect cost rate, there is a 10% de minimis that is allowable. Just a disclaimer here that foreign participation on your project requires DoD approval. So whether that be foreign vendors or foreign key personnel, just make sure to check with a program manager, just to double check it and verify and see if make sure that approval process gets started early. And on this next slide, we have a table just sort of outlining team composition. And the purpose of this is included just kind of to help you again think about cost share and who can contribute cost share on your project. So it's really just options for building out your team. We mentioned we really wanted to see diverse perspectives on your team, but also these different portions or people playing different roles in your team could also have different cost share contributions to your work. It's just for consideration about different options for building out team structure and trying to meet that 1-to-1 cost share. With that, I'll hand it back over to Mark.
Great, thank you, Hunter. Happy to describe the next set of things we want to describe, which is IP, resources, and upcoming events to round out the webinar. So Laura mentioned the intellectual property management plan during her slides. This video can clarify more about that and is also a plug for the great videos on our website for frequently asked questions. I'm going to play a video, but please note in the chat if you cannot hear. And I'll just mention that for these program areas, IP can be a little bit unique. So again, speak with your program manager ahead of time for considerations for that.
Biomaid is committed to establishing an end-to-end bioindustrial manufacturing system, and that starts with its members. This video will help to clarify how Biomaid's intellectual property management plan impacts your proposed work for Institute projects. Why are contributions to the Biomaid ecosystem from Institute projects so important? Contributions raise up the overall technical base for bioindustrial products by addressing key technical needs that have been identified by the BioMade community. It enables access and brings awareness to the IP pool generated by members, and it creates a collaborative environment that encourages key stakeholders to build a more resilient bioindustrial manufacturing ecosystem. What is the Intellectual Property Management Plan? The IPMP describes how background IP related to a funded project and new IP generated on an institute project, considered foreground IP, will be handled. Institute projects will require adherence to the invention sharing requirements provided in the IPMP. The IPMP can be found in your membership documents and on the BioMade membership portal. What is background IP? Discoveries, inventions, or technology that your organization has developed independently of BioMade funding that is related to your proposed project. For example, this could include patented inventions that are being utilized in your proposed project, like a proprietary cell strain developed with non-BioMade funding. When discussing background IP with your project partners, it's important to identify sensitivities around the sharing of information and to specify the safeguards that can be developed, i.e. contribution terms. What is foreground IP? All discoveries, inventions, technology, or IP rights developed during the performance of an institute project. When discussing foreground IP with your project partners, it's important to determine the IP you plan to develop during the project and will contribute to the membership ecosystem. Define the field of use, which is the intended use, application, or anticipated market of the discoveries you are hoping to make and retain for your organization's potential commercialization and/or future research efforts. Early communication between project partners is key to the successful adherence to the IPMP. Important considerations for project partners include establishing NDAs or CDAs between project partners to address the protection of each party's confidential and proprietary information. Discuss how you will share information among project partners and consider the link to the project plan and deliverables. Align your expectations on publication of research results, which is particularly relevant for projects with academic and private partners. During the proposal submission process, project partners will be asked to develop a unified statement of work. It is required for teams to clearly identify contributions from the project. BioMade program managers are available to discuss any questions regarding IP contributions. Contact proposals@biomade.org to request a meeting.
Okay, we'll wrap up with a couple more slides. If there's any questions on IP, as mentioned, you can schedule a meeting with the program manager, and hopefully that video was helpful. But a lot of these resources and next steps of specific details or fine level details comes down to what was talked about earlier. Interacting with your program manager at multiple stages throughout this process is really key. So one of the first steps you could do as a resource for your project team is to meet with your program manager, determine the fit of the project against the program area and specifically the project call. It's a great opportunity to prepare for submissions, so we encourage that. As we just saw in the IP video, it's helpful, it details a lot, and there's a lot of other great videos on the website, as well as the member portal if you're a member. There's a lot available to help understand the requirements in these videos, like cost share, like in-kind contribution, or even the budget templates. And we talked about teaming a little bit earlier. Hunter mentioned that, and this process we call teaming essentially relates to finding a project partner. And I just want to say that the member portal is a great way. We're going to have a webinar actually in 2 hours on teaming. So if you register for that, thank you, and hopefully that'll help you in finding a right complementary fit to your project. But it shouldn't end there. The member portal is a great way. There's discussion boards, a lot of other resources and contact information if opted in by the member that you can continue this teaming process and communication. And then once you have your membership, like Laura described earlier, just send an email to memberportal@biomade.org to start learning more about the benefits of the portal. And lastly, just the FAQs. And if you can't find your question there, please send it to proposals@biomade.org. Odds are that others will have similar questions, and it may make its way to the landing page on the website at a later time. And then just the final events, we have this webinar coming up at 12 p.m. Pacific. This is the informational webinar, whereas that's dedicated for teaming, as I just discussed. If you opted to sharing a slide, we'll be hearing about high-level overviews of what members, potential members are seeking in a partner and the direction of the project may be going in. And lastly, yeah, just we talked about teaming and how it can extend outside of the webinar onto the portal. And I just kind of want to make a plug for the member meeting, the annual member meeting. You know, in-person interactions are just especially beneficial when it comes to crafting the right project and you know, revising it as necessary. So please save the date for the annual member meeting. And you can visit this link to find out about the venue and more about registration. So with that,